You're on.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call our meeting to order at 6:30 PM. If you could rise and join me for a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our meeting tonight, we're going to start off with a presentation of a certificate of recognition, and then move to the reorganization of the board. And before I do that, though, I'd like to welcome Steve Baker to our board. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
And to thank Mark Parento for his service for the past 3 years. And yes, he's now going to serve on our Water and Sewer Commission. So he didn't get off free here. We roped him in. So, okay. So after the presentation, then we are going to reorganize. So we'll be like moving our chairs, that thing. Okay. And I see that our town clerk is here, and this presentation certificate is for you. And I'll just read it to you first. This is a certificate of recognition presented to Elizabeth Cunniff. Be it resolved on this day, May 12, 2025, the Groveland Select Board proudly joins the entire town of Groveland in honoring Elizabeth Cunniff for her dedicated service as town clerk. Since her election in 2018, Elizabeth has exemplified commitment, integrity, and genuine care for our community. During her tenure, Elizabeth has revitalized the town clerk's office by streamlining procedures, enhancing transparency, and undertaking the significant challenge of reorganizing decades of vital records. Her efforts have not only modernized the office, but have also ensured that residents have better access to important information, fostering a stronger connection between the town's administration and its citizens. Elizabeth, your dedication, meticulous work, and thoughtful leadership have left a lasting impact on Groveland. You have set a standard of excellence that will be felt for years to come. On behalf of the town of Groveland, its employees, and its residents, we extend our deepest gratitude and best wishes. May your future be filled with continued health, happiness, and fulfillment for you and your family. Please know that your contribution will always be remembered and appreciated by all of those that you have served. Thank you. Yep, shake hands and, you know, the fun stuff. Thank you. Yes, of course.
Thank you all.
And if I think we want to come out in front and get a picture with everybody, that would be the nicer thing to do, and you'll kind of be in the middle, because you're the important person, if you know what I'm saying. Here we go.
Look at this group.
Oh, wait. Oh, let's go. No, I can be here. I just want her to have her certificate.
Fantastic. My God.
Good? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for the picture.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm going to just move my stuff back. Okay.
Yes.
Did you want to say anything or? Not at all. Please, it's your moment. Go right ahead.
All right. Okay. It won't be too long. All right. So I would like to thank the Select Board for this recognition, and thank you to Joe Demore for initiating it. I would especially like to thank the voters in Groveland for their support over the last 6 years. I know I could never have imagined in 2019 how much I would enjoy this career change that I've chosen. This position is interesting, ever-changing, and challenging. I have personally learned so much and grown so much, and it was a great way to finish off my career. I've enjoyed meeting and getting to know so many very special residents in Groveland. We are lucky to live in a community with so many wonderful people. I could never have accomplished some of the goals we have without some great assistance, so I would like to name a few people who have helped me along the way. To Laurie LeBlanc, who encouraged me from the very beginning, and then worked tirelessly with Jen Close to be the best wardens I could have ever asked for. And to some of the poll workers who were here at the beginning before I arrived and they stayed through the crazy days of COVID, I wish to thank Evelyn and Dave Tuttle, Francis Slattery, Marion Hodges, and Ed Reed. And in addition, so many dedicated people have joined our team of election workers. We could not be a success without all of you, and I thank you all. Then also, when I first arrived, Jean Spur was such an amazing help to me. She donated so many hours to help organize the office. A few years ago, the Select Board actually approved an assistant position, and we were able to hire. So Julie Fabry is now my assistant clerk, or the assistant clerk, not mine anymore. And she is the most amazing worker. She loves to learn, she is quick, she's efficient, she's professional, and she's so kind to everyone that comes in. Together, we have achieved many, many goals. The office still has a long way to go to ensure the permanent storage of records and to grow with the ever-changing state mandates. The Mass Town Clerks is an amazing resource for any questions or advice or whatever topic is needed, and I think our next town clerk, Jennifer Peterson, will do a great job. So once again, I wish to thank everyone in Groveland, and it has been a pleasure to be the town clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, and next on our agenda is the board reorganization, which is traditional every year following the election. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to nominate Jason Naves as the next chair of the Select Board.
I'll second that.
And do we need discussion on this? No? There being none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? I'll be the first hand up, you noticed that? Not that I didn't like it, but it's been a year. Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
You accept, of course.
Of course.
Okay, thank you. And I wanted to nominate Becky as our vice chair.
I'll second that.
That's nice of you. Any discussion? There being none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And there we go. Now get out of here. No, I'm just kidding. I want to thank all the board members for the privilege of serving as chair. It's a real eye-opener. You think, oh, not too much work, because Rebecca does it all, which she does. But it's still a lot of work that goes into it. So it's good to rotate it every year, because that makes sure that everybody gets their feet on the ground and gets a good understanding of what this board does. Okay, and so now let's just play musical chairs.
Stay right there.
No.
Change the signs.
Oh, no, we're changing the signs.
You're the centerpiece now.
Da-da. Remember, I tried to go sit at the end, and we realized early on that just wouldn't work. You have to move chairs. It just doesn't work otherwise. Part of the whole entertainment value of our meeting.
Jason doesn't travel light.
I know, I'm surprised. You're going to have to move.
Oh, I have to move too?
Yes, of
Oh.
course, because that's my seat now. Okay.
Wow, I was heading out the door, but I guess.
Well, now you can't. You can't.
direction.
There's nowhere to run now, Becky. We've got you closed in on both sides. You can try, but you won't get far, right? This is like a nice airy.
It is nice.
It's nice, yeah.
Enjoy it.
Yeah. Like a little extra room here at the end.
Yeah.
and-
Comfortable?
Oh, wait, I got
Awesome. All right.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yes,
you're
thank you
welcome.
very much,
It
Kathy.
was my pleasure. Thanks. All right.
All right, so I guess we're going to start off with public comment. I didn't see that we had any written in. No department updates. So the first thing on the agenda is the signature of the Taki Corona liquor license. Again,
Yes, so this is a license that was approved by the Select Board back in August 2024. There were a couple of issues with the application. It was sent back and forth between the ABCC and the applicant. Since we are the go-between, we've seen this a couple of times on our agenda. The ABCC has issued their approval, and due to such, we need to vote to sign the final liquor license.
So do we have a motion to approve the final liquor license?
I'll make a motion, we approve the license.
I'll second it.
Good.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor? Unanimous. Memorial Day event representation.
So I know that the former chair had asked who is going to be representing the select board at the upcoming Memorial Day event that will be on May 22nd, 6:30 here at the Central Fire Station. I think there was discussion as to whether or not it should rotate and who would be the one that would speak on behalf of the select board and the town at the event. So I believe we're just looking for a recommendation as to who would be the representative for the event.
Yes, if we could. So I actually reached out to Becky and asked her if she would like to speak, because I spoke last year. So sort of the tradition when I first got on the board with Michael Wood is they would come to the board and we would just, rotate. And I think Evelyn Tuttle, that's her name, correct, Evelyn? She said it was, what was it? I'm sorry, Dick.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. She said it was nice to get different faces in there, so I think it's a good opportunity for the different faces of the select board to go, and you don't have to have a grand speech. Personally, I just spoke about my father, who was a Marine and served in Korea, and how proud he was of his service. He didn't talk much about what happened in Korea, but how proud he was that he had been a Marine and had served the country, and he went to college on the GI Bill. Yeah, so that was all I mentioned. I mean, just as a personal sharing experience. Yep.
So is that something you would like to do?
Yes, I've already written something.
Oh, very nice.
Yes.
Does anybody disagree with having Becky get up and say something for the Memorial Day presentation? Are they going to be also doing regular readings?
Yes, that's the standard agenda.
Yep.
So they can also pick anybody else from the board
Correct.
to do them? Okay. So I don't think that we need to take a formal vote on that. I think it's something that she wants to do, and there's nobody that objects to it. So I think that's fair to say, that that's something you can do. And next will be the police chief contract.
One, you're like me, you went,
Oh,
yeah.
request from the environmental police. Request to store the boat and trailer in the parking lot behind 181 Main Street for access to the boat ramp. Key request. Which is something that I believe the police chief has been in discussion with, and says it's not going to interfere with any public safety, and
Correct. And as stated in your memo, they had previously had a storage location in Merrimack, but that lot use changed, so they no longer have a place to store their boat. So we tried to make a comparison as to how it would fit in a lot, and it's 25 feet, so it's a little smaller than the school bus. So we think it would fit nicely over where the school buses were originally located. And because it's not being used at 5 a.m. in the morning, getting started and warming up the bus, it won't have the noise and/or disturbance that was something that was a concern for the Groveland Housing Authority. So in addition to the location, they're also looking for access down to the boat ramp. We currently have a key entry gate. There is a fee associated with the cards that we issue. So along with the request for storage of the boat at 181 Main Street, we're also asking that they be given access to the boat ramp and be given a key pass for free of charge.
so that is something we do need a motion and a vote on. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to allow the environmental police to store a boat and trailer in the parking lot behind 191 Main Street and to provide a key access without fee to our boat ramp.
I'll
Do we have
second that.
Seems like a reasonable request.
Any other discussion?
I just had one question, or two questions. It'll be stored there year-round?
That's my understanding. I would need to double check whether or not they take it in for the winter, but we didn't get further along in that conversation, but I can definitely check and bring that answer back to the board.
Okay. And then I was wondering, late winter, early spring, do we have to do anything to make sure that they have access down to the water at the boat ramp if there's snow on the ground or anything like that?
So we do provide access down to the boat ramp pretty much year-round, even in the snow months. We usually plow a pathway all the way down. The one thing is that the docks aren't in, but they wouldn't necessarily need the docks. They would just need to back up the boat. We had an agreement with the USGS, I believe is the title of the agency, and they were doing water testing, and they were doing that year-round, so they were able to access the river whenever they needed throughout any of the seasons. So we anticipate that this would operate the same way, but it is a good question. I'm not sure if they're gonna keep the boat there over during the winter months, because if it is there and we're plowing, there might be an inconvenience, so I should definitely check that.
I would think that they take the buoys out. You can't put boats safely in after a certain date for ice and trees and things, because we used to have a boat down there. But they probably wrap it. The shrink wrapping thing? I don't know what they call that. You've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they probably put it in storage.
Emergency situations, I'm not sure if it's more of a year-round thing, because they're out on the river, or if there's if something happened, I'm not sure. That's my understanding, is that it's for emergency-related issues, for monitoring, or if there
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
unfortunately, a drowning or something of that nature, and they need to get the boat in the water, and they
Oh,
need
yeah.
to get out there, if there's an issue, a boat crash, or somebody's on the ice and the ice breaks, if they needed to get a boat out there. I don't know how it would work and what season, but I think it's more of a year-round type of operation if necessary, but I can definitely get additional information as to storage and what their intent is and season, for the seasons.
Yeah, I
Can we
don't,
vote
I
yet?
don't know that the year-round storage will affect too much, but I'm sure they do have them wrapped and stored. This is more of a convenience thing.
Right.
Just to have it here so they can access it quickly and conveniently. But it's something that they can definitely work out with the police chief and you in the future. So with that, I'd call for a vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Next up is the town administrative performance evaluations.
Nope.
No, police chief.
Damn.
It must be that chair. It did it to me,
Gotta
too.
be. The Police chief contract. Vote to authorize the town administrator to begin negotiations with the police chief and amend the current contract and discussion with a potential extension.
I make a motion to authorize the town administrator to begin negotiations with the police chief to amend the current contract and discuss a potential extension.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? With none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Unanimous? And now we'll go to the town administrator performance evaluations. Did everybody turn in their papers?
I have everyone except for Select Member Watson, Ed
And
Watson.
myself, I didn't turn any in
I-
either.
Wait, maybe I have.
Maybe you got marks.
Yes, I the only ones that were turned over to Annie, which she provided, were Becky's and Mark's.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I have mine. That was counting me. Never mind. I need yours, and I do need Ed's, if you care to. I want to summarize it.
I think that would be fair. I think-
Hopefully, next meeting, maybe I could have it ready.
So I think it's something that we can get to you. Do you think you could get something together this week, Ed? Get it down to town hall
Yeah, we can get it done for the next meeting.
by the next meeting?
I want to
In
have
2
the.
weeks?
Well, yeah,
Well, I'll have it in before then, so they can,
yeah, I'd like to have like a week to put it together, that's all.
So by Monday next week,
middle of the week.
middle of the week, I'll do the same.
Okay,
And then,
that's Wednesday, just to be clear.
And we did hear some great feedback from Select Board Member Boucher, because we had talked about making it more accessible prior to the election date and the changing of members, since it really is an analysis of the work that was done the prior year. So
Right.
in informal conversations, we talked about maybe even trying to potentially make the form electronic, So it's kind of like a Google form, so that
Yeah,
you're able to
I
then put in
agree.
the information. We can print it out as well, it doesn't have to be, but it still makes it a little easier, because then we can export the data to whoever the chair is, so that the chair can then put together the report.
Yeah.
And we can have that facilitated through the executive coordinator, so it's not necessarily really me involved, it's more so the select board and the executive coordinator. So we'd be happy in my office to try and help assemble
Oh,
that
okay.
and make that a little bit more easier for the select board, because I know it's a really busy time of year, we have budgets, we have town meetings, and if it was a little bit more streamlined, it would be, all right, sending this out and then received, and then it wouldn't necessarily come down to crunch time, because I do value your time, and I do appreciate the practice and the exercise and the feedback, so I just don't want to rush people as well.
Yeah, and I think since it's an annual review, I think closer to the year end is probably more practical. I know that they try to do it with the original people that were on board with the select board, instead of having somebody come in new that hasn't been here for the full year. But it's hard to do an evaluation when you only have 6 or 7 months of the year. So I
Right.
would
Well-
prefer to do it after the election myself,
But, I don't know.
just to have a more encompassing time.
I can look into it some more and see, because we got the form from the consultant that helped us with the hiring process. And I guess, I think you want 5 members weighing in, and someone who's new to the board can't really weigh in a meaningful manner. They haven't been here. I mean, they may have watched the shows, but I mean, that's not the same as being on this side of the table. I just think if what Rebecca is suggesting was pushed through, it would be much simpler process, because I do think like we're getting a better handle on the budget process. I feel like we weren't as rushed towards the end as we've been other years. So we're improving on that. So this item is kind of like just a side item. So the point would be that we ask for the goals in July, and you're right, we'll have, we could push it into March, to the end of March. So you'd have a good chunk of time to make an evaluation. But I think you have to have the members that were here do it. I really do. And I like the fact of having 5 weigh in on it, because I think that's important.
I
Yeah,
certainly can understand that. So
okay.
it's something we'll discuss again at our next meeting when we
Sure.
have the review.
I
Right,
also had some comments too on the format itself, like with the rating. In other places that I've worked at, they actually defined each of the ratings. So if you're going to say unsatisfactory, what does that mean? So I came up with some definitions that I had found, and also the goal page,
Yeah.
having them just pre-listed. If we go to an electronic format, that's something that I think we definitely need in there, because I had to go to Rebecca and ask what her goals were, because I didn't have them handy.
yeah.
So those are a couple of little improvements beyond the electronic format option that I think would be helpful. And if it's sent out every February and then due in March, it gives us time to
Yeah.
get it done, because I
Yes.
agree with you, having the board that worked with Rebecca. I think last year, it was done when I had just started. And so, as a new select board member, it was really difficult for me to gauge that. And I wrote that in there. I think I was very transparent on, I don't know yet. So I like the idea of
Yeah.
whoever was the board member at the time.
Right, right.
Sounds fair.
Okay.
So we'll discuss that again.
But I like the Google form idea,
That was all Becky.
because that would just take the summary would be done.
Yes.
And then you're just doing the write-up, and that way you can rotate,
And
whoever
especially
wants.
being a Google form, it can be updated as you go. So once
Yes.
the goals are created, it can be put in there, it can
Yep.
just sit there and wait.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's perfect.
You don't have to go back and find everything and rethink about what you said.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. Absolutely. And so now it's town meeting recap from the town administrator.
Yes, so I see that the moderator is here, and he can provide some feedback as well. And I do know that we are trying to schedule a recap with both the outgoing town clerk and the new clerk and the moderator to go back and go over some of the feedback as well from the meeting. But I did have an opportunity to sit down with the executive coordinator and kind of just brainstorm while it was fresh in our minds to kind of figure out exactly what went well and what did not. And I did want to make it a public discussion with the select board for some feedback so that we can improve moving forward. So as you'll see in the memo that was provided in your packet, some of the key takeaways that we had is the warrant process. There were a few technical errors, unfortunately. One of the things with a document of this nature is that you can have 8 people read it and somebody will find something else, or somebody's focused on whether or not the font is different, somebody's focused on whether or not the punctuation's there, then somebody misses a number, but then another person catches it, but they don't catch it in the other location. So there are a lot of different eyes on the document, but we are trying to put together a more formatted checklist so that we can make sure that we're looking at everything that we need to look at so that there are no technical errors, because that can cause a little bit of hiccups during the actual town meeting process when we have to make amendments and motions to amend because it's not accurate. And if we don't make those amendments, obviously there could be major repercussions in terms of what we're voting. So we definitely heard that loud and clear, and we're definitely putting parameters in place to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future as best as we possibly can. The other feedback we had was the presentation enhancements. A lot of people really liked the presentation slides that we had done this year. I don't think we've heard one bad thing. So we're really excited that it was well received, and we will look forward to continuing that in the future. There was a lot of feedback in regards to the room setup. There was a little bit of a difference with the room setup because we had the projector screen and we hadn't had that in the past. So we were kind of concerned about whether or not the projector screen would shine in any of the faces that were up there, and trying to spread people out, but then trying to keep consistency with the moderator and then the town clerk and then also town council, because they need to converse, and if there's motions, and then there's also taking into consideration like the microphone locations and the setup of the chairs. So we were leaning towards going back to a similar setup as to what we had in the past, which was more of a U shape, so that you can kind of see the board spanning out, so you're not all just in one line, but a little bit over to the side, and also going back to having the select board on one side and the finance board on the other side, and then keeping the town clerk, the moderator, and town council kind of in the middle, so that again, that you can all see each other. We talked about adding microphones in different locations, having the 3 up front, and then also keeping 2 in the back. And then also looking at putting the spectators that are non-residents, that are non-voters, up again closer to the front and the back. It was very difficult for them to hear and understand what was happening. And then also with the seating arrangements, making sure that they're in sections so that the aisles are very clear, so that we can make sure that people can access the microphones if they need to get up and speak. So we did hear from a lot of people that the setup wasn't exactly ideal. So we do have some solutions moving forwards in regards to that. Additionally, we heard a lot of feedback about the financial information. As we had discussed from a board level, we had issues with the software that we were using. We usually use ClearGov for our budgeting software. The numbers from fiscal year 24 and 25 were not coming in the way that they needed to, which was screwing up our fiscal year 26 numbers. So we had to go back to using the Excel spreadsheet, which meant we had multiple different versions of the budget, because it goes to the finance board and the select board, and then it goes back and forth. So this year, we are looking to use a different platform. It's actually one that we're already using to some extent, which is our Vadar, which is our accounting software. So it will just pull from all of our accounts that we're currently using, so it'll make it a lot more streamlined, and there'll be actual numbers that are relevant to our budgets, which will also provide year-to-date numbers, which is very helpful when we're analyzing line items to see exactly what we're talking about and what we're putting forward versus what we've spent and at what time of the year that money's being spent. So in the future, with the new town administrator bylaw and with the bylaw falling into my office, my hope is to provide a more detailed budget book with the requested and suggested budget to the finance board and the select board. And in addition to that, I'm hoping that working with the finance board, we can incorporate that booklet as part of the booklet that gets handed out at town meeting. So there would be like a forward and a recommendation, which is under statute of what the finance board is supposed to be doing. So they would have their letter in the beginning and their recommendations, and then after that, it would be the entire booklet of what's being proposed, what was requested, and all of the financial data, line item by line item by line item. So that way it doesn't cloud up the warrant in the process, but all of the supporting documentation is provided to people, not just in advance, which it will be, but at town meeting as well, so that they can follow along. So we're hoping that will also accommodate some of the feedback that we heard. And then just as a follow-up to the articles, as we all know, we approved all 48 articles, and we approved our $24 million operating budget. For the general bylaws, we had the town administrator bylaw, the updates to the council on aging bylaw, trash and recycling, also sidewalks, snow debris, driveway construction. Just to note, general bylaws do not take effect immediately. You have 30 days, and then they need to go to the Attorney General. The Attorney General then has 90 days to approve them. Then they get approved. Then we have zoning bylaws, which are a little bit different, and some of the main ones that we did was the MBTA 3A zoning, the accessory dwelling units. We clarified changes to the battery energy storage, as well as the floodplain overlay bylaw. So zoning bylaws are actually effective the date of town meeting, but they still need to be certified and sent to the Attorney General's office for approval. So that process is still within the clerk's office right now for both, so we're getting those finalized to send over to the Attorney General for their final approval. And then for the community preservation articles, we did the CPC category set-asides, which is a statutory requirement. We also approved 46 Washington Street and the environmental review, the trail system enhancements, the congregational bell restoration, the affordable housing initiatives, and the extension of funds to restore the veto. We are working with the community preservation chair right now to finalize the grant agreements that will go out to those applicants who submitted those projects, and they will be required to fill out the form to make sure that they're in compliance with all of the rules, regulations, and laws that we have in regards to financing as well as procurement. So stay tuned for those project developments, which I will continue to keep you apprised of as I have updates. And then for the financial articles, as we talked about, we had the $24 million budget. We approved capital outlays via free cash. We had our revolving fund spending limits, and then we had our standard, PEG access account allocation, as well as the bond premium handlings. And then for the enterprise funds, all of those articles passed for the water and sewer department, and most notably the authorization to borrow for construction of the water treatment facility. So we just want to thank the select board, the finance board, and the residents and everybody for their feedback. And again, we welcome any additional comments, feedback, or suggestions as to how we can improve moving forward. Nothing is ever perfect, so we want to hear from you. We want to hear what we can do better. There's always a chance to improve, but we did listen to what we have already been told, and we also were there. So we know that there are definitely things that could improve upon. So again, I know that the town moderator is present with us this evening. I'm not sure if he has anything to add to that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. I wanted to thank the board, which I did not do that evening, for supporting relatively successful town meeting. There were some technical issues. My lack of clear ability to execute certain aspects of my job, including the amendment, which was very complex. I have an important meeting tomorrow with Rebecca and Annie and Jen Peterson and also Elizabeth, and we're going to begin to put in place continued changes to the meeting. It'll feel different as we go forward, and the purpose of that is to make the meeting more exciting, more inviting, easier to attend, more pleasant, because we have 1.2% of the voting public attending this meeting, and my biggest fear and my vision is to prevent this from happening is that we don't struggle to get 100 people into that building. There are other towns and cities in this area that now are contemplating charter commissions because they just can't get enough people to show up at town meeting. So we want to reverse the trend of apathy by making the meeting more appealing, more exciting, more inviting, and much easier and more pleasant to participate in. That's the overall goal. That's my vision, and that vision is shared by the team I just mentioned that supports me. I also want to, again, thank you through the Select Board. Thank you, Kathy, for your hard work. You worked harder than I did at that meeting, making all those motions. So it was a first time for me, and I endeavored to do much better. I appreciate your support and your patience.
Does anybody from the board have a question for either Joe or Rebecca?
Yes, I know I've mentioned this before in the past years, but I think it's way past time for the town meeting to go to electronic voting. Some sort of a tablet or a pad. And this could work to enhance the meeting. Now, with the screen that was up there at the past meeting, people could actually see, generated as the votes are counted, and as they hit the pad, yes or no. They could actually see the votes as they're tabulated. I think you might get a more accurate count. Rather than, it would go just as fast as the yeas and nays. It would, even when it's rebroadcast on the TV, they would have access to that. It also, and Joe, you've been at a couple of town meetings, and you know that sometimes you're sitting next to a friend of yours that is opposed to what you're in favor of. But it's almost intimidation that they vote the way their friend wants them to vote. And I think we go into the ballot box and it's a secret vote at an election. We should try to do the same thing at a town meeting. I think you might get more people at the town meeting if you did something like that.
Ed, I really appreciate your vision, and tomorrow's meeting, I'm sure we're going to make a list of to-do, and I am very close to saying 100% that I think we're going to put that on the list, float that idea. This would be a handheld device. You push the button if you vote for something, yay, or you push another button if you say nay. We have to educate people. It doesn't mean that you can vote from home in your pajamas. You still have to show up at the meeting. But exactly right, because I might be in favor of something that might disturb my neighbor. That's certainly been an issue over the years. Absolutely true. So your vision is important, and I appreciate you reminding us, because I think if we can find the money in the budget, because it ain't cheap, we're going to have some handheld devices there next year. So thank you for that.
Anybody else?
No, I think I'm all set on that.
Kathy?
Yeah. So we did look into these before, and they're not without some things to be concerned about. As with all electronics, I mean, I work with students and iPads, and so I know the glitches that happen. So I think that I don't know that you can wrap it up in 1 year. I think you might need to take time to research it and make sure that you have fail-safe. If it's close, at what point do you decide that you do go to a hand count to make sure that the clicker count is accurate? You know, what are the standards? What are the protocols? And because we never got that far on it all. All I know is there were concerns about it, and I would want to make sure that we look at all these concerns. I understand people feel intimidated sometimes, but we've also gone to instead of the yelling vote, we did with Maya Olson, we went to just raising our hands. So we weren't all screaming at the top of our lungs, you know, and that went very nicely, and that also created a different kind of collaborative atmosphere because you just raised your hand. And if it was obvious that the majority were in favor, then it passed. And if it was close, then the count. So, you know, as an interim measure, there's always that to consider as well. I think I was really happy to see that we had our quorum right away, which was really, really good. And I want to make sure that going forward, we hold on to that quorum. So some of the things I've thought about is, like myself personally, I don't drive by the town hall except to come for meetings. So I don't see what's on the sign here, ever. And I'm not alone. There's a lot of people that don't know the town meeting is coming, or someone tells them, then they forget, you know, whatever. So we used to put signs up, and I spoke to the town administrator about that, you know, a sign that just says, you know, annual town meeting Monday, annual town election Monday. I mean, it'd be easy to trade them out, put them at strategic locations as you enter the town, just to give people a heads up, because we did get that quorum. That means people are interested. I know you call it apathy, but I call it interest. I look at it the other way. I look at the years that we spent calling everybody in our street and our neighbors and our friends to say, come on, can you just come down? It's going to be quick, come on. We had the quorum right away. So we've got that. Let's hold on to it and work from there. So I am really happy about the fact that we had the full room and we were able to have the town meeting start on time. And I think the important part is we got people out at a reasonable time, because I think that was another drawback on all sides of the age spectrum, you know, whether you have small kids or you're older or you have a job, whatever it is. Those chairs are not the most comfortable. Once you get past the 2.5-hour mark, it's like, yeah, get me out of here. Think of it that way. You're just really pushing it. So I think just keeping it moving, I think the way the warrant was set up was as the best possible way this time. I compliment the town administrator for that, because we had some really lengthy articles, and we kept it moving, and we focused on the important parts of those articles and not on the minutia. We focused on what they were deciding and what it mattered to the town. And I just would like to make sure that we get more people engaged in the action on the floor. That sometimes it seemed like only one or two people was running to the mic all the way to second or something. And so it'd be good to encourage that. And to that event, I think coming all the way up to the front of the room and having to stand there at a table to do an amendment is like, it's kind of embarrassing. I don't know how else to say it. I wouldn't want to do it. So if there could be a side location for that type of activity so you don't have to stand in front of everybody, like, I just think it's uncomfortable, you know, and maybe people had ideas or had amendments that they wanted to think about, but they probably are like, but I don't want to have to go all the way up to the front of the room and stand there, right? So that if there's a way maybe during the brainstorming to make that more accessible on the floor, because it should be easy. It should be simple. You should be able to write down the amendment. What do you want to say? And then the polishing should happen up front, and then just make sure that amendment agrees with the person that's making it. They shouldn't have to polish it. Do you know what I'm saying? What they're trying to say, rough it out, and then hand it over and fix it. Yes, exactly. Don't make them keep standing there, because it's just like, right, yeah, because, you know, unless you live and breathe these rules like we do, you don't know, but you know what you want to change. So make it a little more accessible and easier for people to do that.
I definitely will ask for a comment from town council, because he did give us the instructions that it had to be absolute, exact, and specific. That's why I was trying not to make a joke, like we need to see a best Catholic school, you know, penmanship so I can read the darn thing, and it has to be exact. But we'll address that, and Kathy is correct. And sometimes simple things like pushing the microphones towards the back instead of up front, that's important. The key thing that I struggled with this year was I couldn't get enough participation. I think there were bets on the floor that this meeting was going to go till 1 a.m. because there were some hot button ticket items on there. But it didn't happen. But what was really shocking is that we did make a decision at the beginning of the meeting not to read out the articles, which I've had many long night memories of reading the article. You want to make a meeting boring and technical language, read the entire article. It was beautiful when all we needed to do is go to Kathy and read the motion, which everybody could read along on the screen. So we'll work on things, and then with your consent, Jason, I'd like to come back maybe after this summer and give a preview as an agenda item as to what this meeting will look like next year. Because we're not having a meeting tomorrow, and that's the end of it, and, you know, I'm going to show up April 26th. We're going to work together on this. The vision for the major part of the change that we have comes from Rebecca, and so I thank her for that. And I'm going along, learning along as I'm going as well. We're going to make some changes. It's going to feel different. Hopefully, we'll bring in the electronics if that makes sense for all of us. We're going to ask for your opinion. That's important to me. That's why I want to put this on as an agenda item. I'm not going to come in and say, this is what the meeting looks like. What do you think? And we'll continue to work on it and perfect it.
Well, I definitely think discussion is important. I think all the work that you did with Rebecca, especially on the meetings that were posted, the roundtable meetings, I think that got a lot of information out there. It stirred up some interest, and it's also helped to make the meeting go a lot smoother, because people had the facts. I know that there's been discussion about what's being said on social media, and there's a lot of misinformation, but there's a lot of great information, and when you look at the people that are in the government that post the information, particularly on our main Facebook page, and then when that gets shared, you know that information's accurate because it's the source that it's actually coming from. And if you do find something that you're not sure if it's accurate from the source, you can always find out by contacting any one of us, Rebecca, or anybody else. So I think that's important as well, and I think that really helped this meeting go much smoother, especially with the hot button topics that we had. Do you have any other?
Yes, I have a few notes, thank you.
Good.
So one thing I definitely like was that digestible description for each of the articles, right? If something was user-friendly, the wrap-up of what it meant, because the language can be really confusing. So that was something I really liked. The electronic voting, I did want to talk about that. I am a huge advocate for technology. But I did actually, was just speaking with some Ipswich residents a few days ago, actually, and they use electronic devices. They have an issue, so there's a timer set on it, so it's 15 seconds you have to vote. They have an overflow room, so they had people in the overflow. There's a 20-second delay in the overflow room. So they had to go into the main room to vote because it wasn't even connecting right. Another thing to think about is, what about a town meeting where it does have a hot topic, an override? Marblehead had 600 people show up at their town meeting. They had to reschedule it because they weren't physically able to manage that many people. So when you add in the electronic devices that are required, again, I'm not against it, but it's definitely something to think about. Ipswich did recently have some issues with it, so it might be someone to consult with, right, to find out how it was working for them. And then as far as just some positive notes on it, just some recognition. I want to thank the attendees for being part of the discussion and the decision-making process. I want to thank the town clerk, the tech crew, and the volunteers for organizing the town meeting. Town administrator, you put together a warrant with way too many articles, but you did it. And I know that there were things that weren't perfect, but it was a lot. It was a lot to go through. Joe, I want to thank you. I love the effort you put into the roundtable discussion videos and educating our residents. And you kept the meeting at a good pace. I was one of those. I did make a bet. I thought it would go until 10:30. So I owe somebody $5. I will not say who. And then for the MBTA zoning overlay, I wanted to thank DJ McNulty from the planning board. I thought his presentation was really good. And Fire Chief Valentine for sharing his perspective, because I felt like that was really important that he went up there and shared that information. So that's all I had for notes. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve?
Thank you.
I just wanted to circle back to something that Kathy mentioned around, making sure people know about town meeting and about the local election. That was something that I heard a lot when I was talking to people over the past few months. And so I don't know if we could look at maybe including something like a save the date in the tax bills or water bills, something that most residents get, just because we set those dates fairly far in advance, and it might be a way just to get the word out. So that was one thing that I was thinking about. And then the other thing that I noticed at town meeting was a lot more people seemed like they were using tablets or phones to follow along with the warrant. So I was curious if we could look at maybe having a single page on the website that had all of the handouts so that folks could access it easily, and maybe we could just have a QR code or something that people that brought a device could scan. Instead of taking all the papers, they could just bring it up and follow along digitally. So other than that, I thought it was great. I really did think the screen was fantastic. Heard great feedback about that. So those are just my suggestions.
Yes, Ed?
I'm glad we brought up about the amendments. There was one particular article where it had to do with the trash barrels. They wanted to change it from 4 units to 5 units. The poor man spent an unbelievable amount of time writing that out.
I know.
Seems absolutely ridiculous. You vote on the 5, cross out the 4, go vote on the 5, and that's all you need. You don't need to write it down. Yes, if you have a long amendment, and in past town meetings, they've written the amendments out, typed the amendments out beforehand, and then just turn them in. But to go from 4 to 5 and have that man sit down there, it tied up the town meeting for a while until he got done with that. It seems absolutely foolish to do that when it's just a one-word change in the article.
Agreed. We need to fix it. You're right. We're going to work on
And
it.
then there was some typos or technical changes, but there was never an amendment to put in the correct.
A lot of the typos were corrected with so-called modified motions. The modified motions were created almost because we did have people that read the article, but by the time we posted it on April 11th, amazingly, some other folks came in and read it and discovered issues, and we had to make corrections after it had been posted on April 11th. I've recommended to Rebecca, I've got some people in mind that we expand the readers in advance, maybe get some more people to read, more eyes on this document before we post it to catch mistakes, even if they're simple typographical, but some mistakes are technical. So, I mean, I would consider I would consider everybody on this board qualified readers, if you're willing to read and kind of look for mistakes before we post the darn thing. That would be a good concept. It was a great effort. Don't get me wrong, the town meeting, Rebecca and her team are, they're people working on this, 52 weeks out of the year. This is not a month before, hey, what are we doing on April 27th next year? But maybe we can expand the readers, people that will edit, perhaps that will catch some of the problems. But thank you for that. That's definitely a problem.
Yes, Kathy?
I think the corrections that were made, for the most part, were minimal. Having, been involved in this process, either on the select board or on the finance board, I want to say 30 years, I'm dating myself. Things happen after the warrant gets posted that sometimes necessitate a change. I agree, the select board, we could probably divvy up some of the articles and look for anything that pops out at us, but I feel that overall, it was a very good warrant. It was well put together, well thought out, well organized. I don't feel the need to expand and have like a bunch of generic readers involved, because I feel like it'll just complicate a draft warrant that's not even posted, right? I mean, when we're in the draft stage, that's not it. That's not the warrant. It's not posted. Just like the amendments don't exist until you put them on the floor in the town meeting. You could type it up all you want and post it all over the place, but it's not an amendment till we're in session and you make that amendment proposal and it gets seconded. So I'm hesitant to beat ourselves up too much on some things that were easily corrected in the process with a modified motion, which was very simple and very easy to do. I mean, it was easy. Yes, and we could do a better job maybe reading and catching some of the more blatant ones, like the 1800 one. I feel bad I didn't catch that. I have to admit, I didn't read that carefully. But, okay, we can look for that one, I agree. But overall, the bigger issue is the warrant and the town. And to start beating ourselves up about some small things and having more readers instead of focusing on the more important issue of what are we putting before the town, why are we putting before them, and what do we hope they're going to do about it? That's the big thing. That's the biggest issue. So it's a complex process. It's so complex. And we get to sit way above it now that we have a town administrator and executive administrator, and they do a lot of that work. And if they need readers, I would put it in their hands to ask us, could you read through this article? Just give it to us if you want us to read it. I'd be glad to do it, but I don't want to interfere in your process and make it more confusing or more work for you or Annie.
Of course, and we welcome all of the readers that we possibly can get. I know that the select board does review some of the articles. I know the CPC, they went through their articles, they went through their actual process of reviewing and making recommendations on their articles. I know that the Finance Board, they reviewed their articles. I know that the Water and Sewer Commission, they reviewed their articles. I think, again, when you read something so many times, you think you're seeing one thing. So I definitely welcome all the ayes, for sure. But we definitely have multiple people viewing the document. It's not just me and Annie, that even the general bylaws, they go through the board. We had multiple different meetings. Sam had come and talked. I know that the consultant came and talked. You had the articles as part of your packet. The zoning board, the planning board reviewed a lot of the articles. So, I mean, we do have multiple eyes. And then town council. Town council also takes a look at the document, and some of those errors were not necessarily identified. So we're always looking for ways to improve, and they're definitely a deterrent to the process, and 100% should be corrected moving forward. So I take it as constructive feedback, and we'll definitely do better and potentially enlist some readers who maybe don't necessarily look at the warrant at all, and we just sit them down at the table and take a look. So I think it's all something that we can improve upon.
And I agree with Rebecca, because, I mean, ultimately, I don't consider it beating ourselves up. I mean, you always strive for perfection and you settle for excellence. And that's the way she does it, and that's why she's so good at what she does. So, do we have anything else on the town?
Thank you. I really appreciate the comments, and again, your support of our town and your support of me as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any other comments? No? Okay. So we'll move on to year-end transfers.
So I just wanted to update the board that this is something that will be hopefully on your next agenda. It is that time of year. So we are able to, under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B, make transfers at the year end, and that starts on May 1st and goes until the July timeframe, early July, when we're supposed to close our books at like July 15th. And so essentially what this does is it gives us an opportunity to move some funds around if there were any departments that struggled throughout the year, or there was anything that was unforeseen, or we're thinking that there might not be sufficient funds in an account to cover. So the process that we have gone through, which is a process that requires both the select board vote as well as the finance board, is that the finance board will review the suggested transfers first, and they will make a recommendation, and then it will come to the select board, and then the select board will vote, and you both sign the document. It then goes to the town accountant, and the town accountant is allowed to legally move the funds. That gets then reported to DOR at our year end when we're reporting all of our financial figures. So that being said, while we're not voting on it this evening, I did want to put it before the board so that you're aware that this is something that is coming up. As part of your memo, you will see that there are some pre-identified accounts that we are already aware of that will require those transfers. So the first you'll note is the treasurer collector. There are two lines there. There is the postage expense and there is the payroll fee expense. We're not really looking at large dollar figures for these transfers. So we're really only looking for about $1,400 to the payroll fee expense, as well as $2,120 for the postage expense. The other being the highway department, which we'll touch upon more in regards to the Salem Street Dam, is that we have some significant issues going on with the Salem Street Dam. We've engaged with a consultant for work outside of the grant that we are, or the grant that we received through the Dams and Seawall grant, as well as the grant we received from DEP to further assess the watershed, is that there's something in regards to an emergency certification that we'll be seeking through the Conservation Commission, and as part of that, we will need to have additional services rendered by the consultant. So we have started that process due to the emergency situation that we find ourselves in. However, because of that, that will leave the roadway maintenance budget with absolutely nothing. So that means, when we talk about potholes or we talk about anything that we need for the roadway, we will not have sufficient funds. So we are looking to transfer about $10,000 into that account to give us a little bit of a buffer if something were to happen elsewhere, and or we require additional consulting services, because obviously we want to make sure that we're engaged with qualified experts that are engineers and have the background in order to make sure that we're doing things correctly. So it is something that we strongly believe in and that we're hoping that the finance board and the select board can support. The other transfer that you'll see on the form is actually just an error that we found. the executive coordinator salary line item is short $60. We didn't factor in the 52.2 weeks of the fiscal year, and therefore we were short, so we're just looking to move over $60 there. And then on the memo, there's two additional ones that I hadn't necessarily called out. One I referenced in the technology budget. The technology budget houses many of our different subscriptions, and we had talked about trying to consolidate and then to do sub-accounts within that account to, make sure that we're eliminating redundancy, streamlining processes, and taking advantage of opportunities within different vendors for certain software or technology that we're utilizing. But this year, we also find ourselves in a situation with the technology because we've had a lot of issues with our dispatch equipment. And then also, originally, when the pandemic happened, we were able to take advantage of CARES funding, the first round of funding, and that allowed for the town to purchase, when Denise Demkowski was here, the Surface computers, like the little laptops that you see, which would allow departments to work remotely if they needed to. And so a lot of those are outdated, they don't work as well, they're just not a good piece of technology. So we've been slowly purchasing laptops, simple Dell laptops for no more than $2,000 with the standard package, nothing crazy, that would allow for departments to have a laptop. So that, in addition to the subscription costs, we're looking at potentially coming in right on budget, but wanted to, again, give ourselves a little bit of a flexibility if the equipment or a monitor broke or something happened, that we would have something on hand so that we wouldn't have to wait until July 1 when the budget reset. And also, it has supply and demand issues when you're ordering equipment and technology needs. And then the one that's not mentioned that we knew about, but I forgot to put on the memo, is that the town clerk has graciously agreed to stay on for another week to help train the new clerk in her duties. So we have two people filling that role, so to speak, for that 1 week. So Jennifer Peterson, the new town clerk, did not get sworn in until today, so she would start effectively today. And Elizabeth Cunniff, her last day would be Monday the 19th. So we would have just that last week of pay that would cause an overlap. So we're looking at $1,900 for that particular transfer. So those are the transfers that we've identified right now that we're looking to move as soon as we get the proper votes. And from the account, the revenue side, or not the revenue, but the other account that we're looking at utilizing is the health insurance line item. So the health insurance line item, that takes care of a lot of the different health insurance that we have, not only the group insurance commission, but we also have randomized drug testing for those employees with CDLs. We also have the cafeteria plan advisory. We also have life insurance. And we also pay for some of our employees who split their time with another municipality, and we pay half of their insurance. So there's multiple different areas that we pull from. But given the plan choices, whether you go from family or single, we usually try and budget on a family side of things because it's higher and it just gives you that little bit of cushion. But between the selection of plans and then also those employees opting to go on their partner's program instead of our program has led to a little bit of a surplus in that account. So we do have the money to cover all of the transfer requests of a total of $21,481.52. And we put the cents in there because we were dealing with a salary line item for the town clerk and wanted to make sure that it was down to the penny. So that's what we have for proposed transfers. Again, I've emailed the chair of the finance board on Friday. I emailed them this memo and let them know that I was going to be presenting it to the board this evening, and that I was hopeful that they would take this item up prior to our next meeting, which would be on May 27th, which is a Tuesday, because Monday's a holiday, but it would allow us to then move the monies. And then if something were to come up later on, we still can go through the same process, but we tried to be really cautious about what we were proposing to make sure that we didn't have to come back before the board. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, there's no vote that's required. I just, again, wanted to update the board, keep you aware, make sure we were being transparent as possible and that you knew what we were doing and that we were going before the finance board. And I can ask the chair to make sure that this is on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think it needs to be on the agenda for next meeting. Also think that the transfer for the town clerk is well worth it, because, I mean, the help to make that transition as smooth as possible is very, very important. And I really have to thank Beth for offering to do that. It's definitely a great help and a benefit to the town. Does anybody else have any questions?
No.
All right. So with that, we're going to move on to the review of the draft statement of interest for Whittier Regional Vocational Technical High School.
So I'm going to recuse myself, Mr. Chairman. As you know, I work at Whittier Regional Vocational High School.
Yes, absolutely. I know, and I think a couple meetings ago that we did discuss it and how much that they were going to be looking for the initial feasibility study. It looks like we do have confirmation that North and Eastern Community College is going to put in there 500. Whittier is going to put in 500. So our part will be 66,000, and it's broken down there. And it allows us to do it over the next 2 years. So I think that's going to be a benefit to us to help spread that out a little bit. But I don't know if everybody read the actual letter. It didn't change from the last meeting. Everything's exactly the same. And I know we had voted that we would move forward with the 4 members that we had, but I was wondering if anybody else had any other comments. Particularly Steve, since he was not part of the meeting that we had.
No, I did review the letter. I guess the only question I would have is timing. Do you have a sense of timing?
It's a long process, and we still don't even know if we're going to get accepted into the School Board Association. This letter that we're trying to put together is for them to even consider accepting Whittier back into the program. So you're looking at least 2.5 years for the feasibility study, and then planning and everything else is going to go along with that. So you're looking at probably 5-6 years down the line. I believe that's what they were talking about at the meeting last time.
And then I guess the only follow-up question would be, does the cost, and apologies if this was already talked about, but does the cost associated with the feasibility study happen before or after
Before.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something we'll have to commit to, and on the sheet that we were given, it gives you the breakdown and the years that we would be putting that forward. So.
Okay.
That's a big part of it. So without any other questions, and since we've already voted to move forward with it, I think we're good to go. I think, although maybe we'll entertain a motion on who's going to sign that paper.
So the last time that we were at the meeting with the Whittier Tech and the Northern Essex Community College folks, they had made it the chair of the board to be the authorized signatory, unless they wanted to authorize the town administrator and manager of that particular community to sign on behalf of the board. So,
And they're doing it on one document. They have somebody that's going to run from town to town to town to get all the signatures. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, you're easy to find at the dog park, so.
Yes,
I
I
think
always
you'd
go
be
by there,
great.
and it's right next to here, so it's very
Yeah.
convenient.
So do we need to vote for Jason?
Yeah, I think we'd.
So I'll make a motion that Jason sign, as the chair, sign the document.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Kathy, you can come back and give your presentation for trash and recycling update.
Okay, so as you know, we've completed the first step in the process, which is the recycling bins, and pretty excited that we're going to take this in 2 phases, because it does help a lot when Town Administrator Rebecca described to us, just identifying homes, identifying how many homes are on this property, how many households. So the next step is, we were at our last meeting, we were provided with a lot of financial documentation from our consultant, Brian Walsh, and the members were to take it home and digest it, because it was a lot. But this would give us the ability to price out, or cost out, I guess would be the better word, cost out the different options that are available to the town. Because what we're discussing now is trying to come up with a recommendation or two scenarios, maybe, that would give the town administrator, after they get approved by the select board, this would give the town administrator the bullet points required to go out and start collecting information from possible trash haulers who might be interested in serving our town. Okay, so it's not going to be like the closed bid process, because we want the proposals to have flexibility in them so that she could ask questions, but we want to provide, from our standpoint, as much information and documentation as possible of things that we want to have identified in any proposal. Because it's not like it was 20 years ago. You need to know who the hauler is, you need to know where they're taking things, you need to know what happens if they need to divert for some reason, where is it going then? Because we're still responsible for the product that leaves the town. And equally, we're responsible when it doesn't get picked up, and we need to have all that laid out, which was never put in a contract before. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, more than just how many trash cans do you need? It's not like that anymore. So the goal is to provide all of that documentation, costed out, priced out, and as well as we do have a table that also provides opportunity to see what the surrounding towns are doing, so you get the overall picture of all our communities, and hopefully that will bring everything really into focus, because I feel like with the pandemic and with the fact that we always just threw the contract at the finance director and said, get us a hauler, we never had a task force. We never had a committee dedicated, except way back when we first began recycling and it wasn't curbside. So this is the first committee that's ever actually done a deep dive into this, and I think the committee's doing a fantastic job. I think we've processed a lot of information, and we're now getting to the point where now we can start to formulate scenarios and come forward with recommendations. And then, of course, it will be up to the select board to identify what they want on those requests for proposals. And, of course, the committee will be available for any questions and answers. We'll give you as much information or as little information as you want. We don't want to give you a whole database, but we want to give you what you'll need. So perhaps at the next meeting, we're meeting again on, do you remember, Stephanie, what the date is? It's beginning of June. It's the beginning of June, I know that, because we picked early. June 4th, thank you. So perhaps the select meeting after that, Jason, if you would be so kind as to put it under discussion, I can bring forward and get something into the packet at that point that the committee has looked at. It may still not be our overall recommendation, but it might start to show you what the items are that we're trying to identify and get some feedback from the select board for our next meeting, if that makes sense to the committee. And obviously, I'm giving you this update so that if there's anything that's on your minds or bothering you or something you feel that we haven't done yet, feel free to either come to the meeting or tell us, and we'll determine if that's something we need to do.
Yeah, I think it's important that you remind me again at the next meeting.
That I can do.
But I think it's important to recognize that in terms of the trash contract, the reason why it's not a bidding process is because it's more of a negotiation. And it's a negotiation with multiple suppliers. And some suppliers offer different things at different prices, and it allows us to go back and forth and really get the best deal for the town. And this type of negotiation, along with changing to the automated pickup, which a lot of the suppliers are demanding, is one of the reasons why, as Kathy can attest, we're not in such a bad situation like Georgetown, because we're proactively always looking for the best deal for the town and how to make things work. And I think that's really a tribute to the staff that the town has had, and the amount of work that they put into it. So, does anybody have any questions for Kathy?
No.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to appointments and resignations. So I'm going to just move through and make the motions for them. I'll make a motion to appoint Aidan Hollingsworth as a student officer pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 96B, in support of his scheduled attendance at the Linfield Police Academy beginning June 2nd, 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? I'll make a motion to accept the resignation from Steve Baker from the Cultural Council effective May 5th, 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? Without any discussion, I'll take a vote.
I'll abstain from that.
4 and 1 abstention. Then I'll make a motion to appoint Melissa Baker of Sunset Circle to the Cultural Council effective May 12th, 2025 through June 30th, 2030.
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
I'll abstain from that as well.
4 and 1 abstention. I'll make a motion to appoint Gary Artman of Hales Court as library page at the Langley Adams Library effective May 20th, 2025 for 5 to 9 hours per week at a rate of $15.62 an hour.
I'll second that. Is it Gray or Gary?
Gray.
Ray?
It's Gray, not
Okay.
Gary, yeah.
Oh,
That's all right.
sorry.
You have a
No, that's all right. I just want to make sure we have it spelled right. Okay.
All right, any further discussion?
Nope.
And without any further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Unanimous? And then we have the approval of the minutes. I did note one error, that the meeting minutes on the agenda call for approval for March 3rd, but in our packet, we have March 17th.
good catch.
I'm still on the sliding.
So unless there's any objections, I'll take them as a block in the motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from March 17th, 2025, April 7th, 2025, and April 28th, 2025.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
I'll abstain as I wasn't at those meetings.
4 in favor, 1 abstention. I don't believe we have any old or unfinished business.
I have something. Not necessarily old, well, other items not reasonably anticipated. Is that what you just said?
That's next, that
Okay,
works?
sorry.
No worries, go
I'm skipping ahead.
go ahead.
I wanted to recommend an annual review and acknowledgement of the select board policies and procedures. So it's something, at every place that I've worked, we've always done that, and I think it's a good way for new members to be introduced to it, and I think it's a good refresher for existing board members. And if we set this as like a recurring agenda item, we can align that with setting the goals as well, for the next fiscal year.
I also think it forces us to keep them current as well.
Yes, yes.
Prevents them from being misplaced and spread out like the last time we put them all together. So I think that's a great idea. Is there any particular month that you would like to see that annual review?
I don't know if we should do it at the reorganization meeting, like when it's fresh and we're ready, we need to set goals? Is that, I don't know, just a
We set
suggestion?
the goals?
You mean this meeting?
Well, not this meeting, and I mean, it's obviously too
Moving
late for this
forward, yeah.
meeting, but moving forward.
I kind of feel like June.
You feeling
June?
I'm feeling June.
Okay.
When do we
This feels like a
typically get
June
the,
issue. to
when do we
me.
typically get the goals going forward from our town administrator? We do that in June. typically
Yeah,
after our
because
review.
we've done the year-end transfers, we've closed out the town meeting.
Okay.
It's June.
Okay, that's the fresh start.
Yes.
Okay.
It tends to be, I feel
Okay.
like it, yeah.
We can make any changes and moving forward into the next year. So I should probably put that in my calendar.
I also have an item not reasonably anticipated at the time of posting.
Yes.
So as you'll see, it was a handout that was provided to you. We received an enforcement order from the Groveland Conservation Commission issued to us on May 8th. That was after we posted the agenda. So that will be on your agenda so that we can have a formalized discussion at our next meeting. So as you'll see, the violations listed is for the removal of a stop log in front of the culvert, allowing Meadow Pond within the National Heritage Priority Habitat to empty without a permit, dumping of mud and fill from a culvert within the border vegetating wetlands at the BVW, and without a permit, and breaking a beaver dam without a permit. So we received this enforcement order on Thursday evening. We did talk to DEP prior to the filing of the enforcement order. We've also been in touch with the National Heritage as well. So in regards to this, we'll talk more in the town administrator time because I have some updates in regards to the dam specifically. But we are looking to declare an emergency certification for the dam and for some immediate work that we'd like to have done at the dam. We do understand that there's been some misinformation about the dumping and the beaver dam. There was no beaver dam that was misconstructed. The highway department found that a beaver was creating a dam within the dam. So that's under the highway's jurisdiction to remove the debris that they were stocking and pile like in front of the dam. So that has been identified as an allowed practice. We removed them based upon the location and put them up on top of the culvert area, or on top of the roadway, the dam area. And so they did not, being the highway, have the appropriate truck work to remove those trucks or the sticks and debris. So they put that out there on the 2nd, and then they collected the debris on the 5th. So they did remove them. They just let them sit from Friday until Monday until they had the proper truck to remove them. So that was done prior to the enforcement order being issued. And there is concern as to what is being classified as a dam. That being said, in regards to the removal of the stop logs, we definitely understand that there's some more information, and that was something that we were trying to get before the Conservation Commission to discuss. But given, again, the beaver activity inside the dam and the way things were shaping up in terms of the structural deficiency of the dam and the roadway itself, there was some back and forth. But we have been in touch with National Heritage about a MISA checklist and filing and partial filing in advance of even talking to the Conservation Commission, because we're not looking to do anything that we're not supposed to be doing. We're just looking to stabilize the dam and address a situation that poses an immediate public safety risk. So the enforcement order was issued. They are requiring us to put the stop logs back in. That's the only remediation effort that they're requiring by May 21st. Again, we have a meeting with our consultant for the Conservation Commission, which was filed prior to this enforcement. It wasn't to discuss this enforcement because we didn't know this enforcement was taking place until the 8th of May. So we're hoping that we can work with the Conservation Commission to clarify some information, as well as work with GZA, our consultant, and also work with National Heritage and Misty Ann, who we've spoken with about this, as well as Pam over at Mass DEP, and also any of their coordinating agencies that are required to be involved. But again, this is just reasonably not anticipated, as again, we received it on May 8th. I wanted to make sure that the select board was aware, because this is against the town, and I want to make sure that you're all aware that we are addressing it and that it will be on your agenda for a formal discussion at your next meeting on the 27th.
I have a question. You know I like this dam. First of
Why
all,
don't we wait until we get to?
no, I want to,
updates?
I'd like to know the you're talking about the logs, right, that are going to be put back?
The stop logs.
The stuff, so where exactly do those go?
So the stop logs are what control the water. So
I
we have
know
two
that.
dams. We have one on Washington Street, and then we have one on Salem Street. And so what ends up happening is that if you use Johnson's Pond over by BZ for boating and kayaking and things of that nature, we control the level of the water so that it can, if it's too much water, we allow some of the water to come through so that the pond isn't so high and it can be utilized and whatnot. With the Salem Street Dam, we haven't necessarily used the logs. When we've done the inspection reports with GZA, there was comments as to whether or not the logs were even there, and if it was partially there, if it was just in the top and not at the bottom, they couldn't see, they weren't being maintained, we didn't have a proper operations and maintenance plan. So what ended up happening is after the inspection by GZA in March, the highway department went out to try and clean up the debris in front of the logs so that the dam could function properly and there was no impact to the structural integrity of the dam, because if you're pushing something up against the dam and then water's not able to go through, and we're talking about needing to buttress the dam and put rocks to stabilize the wall, we wanted to make sure that it was just a clear flow path. So the goal was for them to remove the debris and then leave the stop logs. But with the flow of water, with the structural integrity, and with the intent to slip line the pipe, from a national heritage standpoint and with our original communications with the consultant as well as National Heritage, to release the water slowly instead of creating a cofferdam might be the preferred approach. They didn't offer a full approval, but it was something that they had discussed that might be in the best interest, because the idea is to slip line or the pipe. Once we slip line it, we're putting the stop logs back in. There's no doubt about it. The monies we've gotten for further review and discussion on removal of the dam, that's going to take 5 years. Like, we're not seeing anything happen there. Our main goal was to make it so that the water was drawn down so that we could slip line the pipe, put the stop logs in, and then take all the time we needed, knowing that when you drive over that, the voids or anything else, it's not going to collapse. The wall's not going to fall out. So again, I think there's some miscommunication with the Conservation Commission of the intent and what we were looking to do and the stop logs themselves, because we were just following the orders. So once we get an understanding with the Conservation Commission and we come back before the board, we can report exactly what happened and what is the result of the order.
So the stop logs up at Johnson Pond, are they on that pipe that goes under the road? Where are they?
For Johnson's Pond, they're on the VZ side.
Okay, and who monitors those?
So the highway department monitors the stop logs. And so there are requirements for when you draw down the water. You do need to have a permit when you're drawing down water.
Okay.
But when you're regularly maintaining them, and if there's flood storage aspects, if you're doing it within the confines of maintenance, there's not necessarily a filing. But it's very dependent upon what activity you're doing.
Right, so the stop logs for the dam under Salem Street are on the other side of the road, right? Right
Correct.
there. And we don't think they're there, right? I don't think they're
So
there.
there's only one that's left.
Okay, because the other pond behind 46 Washington Street used to have a thing,
And
and
they're
that was removed. Okay, so was all this permitted to be removed, or?
No, we never, I mean, those were taken out before my
Correct.
role as the
Yeah,
town
okay,
planner,
okay.
but I don't remember or see any action or anything taken or any permitting or anything that was done in regards to the removal of those particular stop logs.
Okay, okay. So as a result of all this, we're going to get all this lined up again?
That's the goal, but
Okay.
like I said, I just received the enforcement order. As we don't have a superintendent, I am the acting superintendent. Hopefully, as of July 1, we can have a superintendent.
Oh, we don't,
So Arthur is the project and programs coordinator.
Oh, okay, so-
Manager. He's
okay, okay.
not the superintendent. Hopefully, he will accept a promotion and become our superintendent.
understand.
But
Okay.
at that point in time, I have been the acting town acting superintendent for the last year. So because it's under my jurisdiction and because, again, it is enforcement order against the town, regardless if it's a highway department, it is a town department. I just
Right.
wanted to make sure that you are aware and that we do have the proper authorities, and we do hope to have further conversation with the Conservation Commission and collaborate on ways to make sure that we're doing everything properly in terms of the habitat, the watershed, as well as the infrastructure.
Right, because the pond behind 46 Washington Street got completely drained as a result of them removing it. Just became like, it'd be a pond for a little bit, then it would be gone. Is that what we want?
So the conversation is to remove the dam because they're man-made. They're not natural to the environment. So they were put there in order to run the mills and to control the flow of water. So the idea is to remove the dam because then it will have better ecological benefit. And there's more monies being given through organizations like the Division of Ecological Restoration, as well as the Merrimack River Watershed Council, as well as Mass DEP, the Dams and Seawall Grant, of removing these structures so that the flow of water can continue to go as it was planned. That means that Meadow Pond will not be as much of a pond as it is now. And I think that that's what the biggest concern is for some individuals, is they don't want to see Meadow Pond be more of what Mill Pond is, because
Right.
that's essentially what's going to happen. Is it's going to flow, the watershed is going to flow into the Merrimack River, which will enhance the ability for fisheries and wildlife to do what they need to do, and not Pond and Meadow Pond. We're not looking to touch Johnson's Pond, which is a major recreational resource for the community. But all of the other dams that are along that watershed and in town, we are looking to remove permanently so that we no longer have to deal with them in the capacity that they are. Because Salem Street is almost like a bridge, there will be a culvert there. So you will see the flow of water, but it will no longer hold back water in the same capacity, and the logs will no longer exist. So to your point, the water will freely flow as rainfall and as Johnson Pond gets manipulated as needed for the recreational and habitat purposes, but Meadow Pond will not be as full as it usually is.
That seems unfortunate. It's pretty. But okay, we'll wait to see. I thought the intent was to try and restore some of these ponds that we used to have. But if that's bad for the environment, to have the ponds,
That's just the conversation that we're having. And
Yep.
if we get into the administrator's memo, I can get into more of the grants and the feasibility and the studies we're doing, because nothing has been decided at this point. The only thing that has been decided, the only thing that I have been on record saying over and over and over and over again, is that the Salem Street Dam is a public safety hazard.
Yes.
If we do not do anything, I'm making a recommendation to the select board to close down the roadway, because I do not want to take ownership if something were to happen. That's the only thing. Slip line it, remove it, keep it. Whatever is decided is decided. Whatever the powers to be decide, I'm fine with all of that. I
Right.
just want to make sure that that roadway is stabilized. And you've seen the photos of the sinkholes, you've seen the radar,
Yep.
you've seen the heat maps, you've seen the
Yes.
voids that are sitting
It's
in that
bad.
roadway. It is scary, and it's something that we need to make sure that we're treating very seriously.
I agree with that.
And you might as well go right into your town administrator time.
Thank you. So it is a little bit lengthier because we did have a little break with town meeting, so there's a lot of information and a lot of things happening. To update the board, again, any of these items, I know they're not on the agenda, these are just updates so that you know, just so that for the new select board member, just updates of things that are happening that I'm involved in, permits that are being issued, issues that I'm meeting with, just things that, you know, you're not really privy to all the time. And then we put it in a memo that's presented to the board, and then what will end up happening is that if there's anything on this memo that you want further discussion on, we'll add it to the next agenda at the chair's advisement, and then we can make sure that we provide proper information and have the proper discourse and invite proper people, agencies, and whatnot to speak on the matter. So for the administration side of things, the last meeting, we had talked briefly about, not the last meeting, but a few meetings ago, about Valley Screw Project. So we did have a site visit with Mass DEP on April 3rd. This was the result of a conversation that we had with the EPA and Mass DEP about the equally public health and safety risk of the current Valley Screw building, and the fact that the hole is starting to grow and there's other holes within the building. It's still privately owned, it's still in tax title, we still don't own the property, but Mass DEP had referenced the fact that they could potentially declare it for emergency demolition and report that up to EPA, and the EPA would potentially provide for funding that would help with the demolition of the building. During the site walk, a lot of alarming things were presented to us. The brick wall on the outside, when you're driving by, you can probably see, has started to fall outward. Additionally, when we were walking around, the fire chief and the building commissioner were with us, and the fire chief just opened the side door and it opened. So we saw activity within the building. People are getting into the building. We could tell that it was recent because of the brand of the beer that was thrown around. But there's a ginormous hole that's in the roof. It is extremely dangerous, and nobody should be on the site. When looking at that a little closer, we saw about 5 cuts in the fences. So we saw a cut in the fence that led back to the water treatment facility that the EPA conducted. And then there was about 3 holes in the fences that were going out to 150 Center Street in the back, or at least the CPA parcels that we had that connect into 150 Center Street. So we've identified those locations, and we identified that to be corrected by the property owner. We're hoping that the samples that Mass DEP took will allow them to file for that emergency demolition process. We have not heard back from them. Again, the site visits happened on April 3rd. Things with the state and the federal government don't exactly happen too quickly. But we did send an email correspondence, and we'll follow up with a phone call by the end of the month just to say, hey, where are we in this process? We're eager to move forward. And we did, again, try to secure the site with the owner by making sure that the door was locked and making sure that they fixed the repairs in the fence. For the Salem Street Dam, we talked a lot about it, but you'll see a little bit more in the details of the inspection report that was issued by GZA about the roadway cracks, the sinkholes, the guardrails, the debris accumulation, the corroded outlet pipe, the masonry wall, and some new deficiencies that were identified with animals burrowing in the structure itself, and compromising the structural integrity of the dam. It is still classified as significant hazardous. We have been in constant contact with the Office of Dam and Safety. We do have a requirement to provide reports, so that's what the March report was. We do need to provide another report in the next few months to make sure that nothing has significantly changed. But GZA has increased their inspections because the wall, again, as we said, has started to jet out, and they've been monitoring that with Mark. So if you look at the wall itself, you can see the spray paint and whatnot as they measure as the wall kind of continuously moves. So what we talked about as well as the missing operations and maintenance plan, because this is an older structure and an older dam, there really hasn't been any document that is correlated with the dam and how we should be maintaining it. So we're really depending on these inspection reports to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to make sure that we can delay any further issues with the dam. The report mentioned a couple of recommendations for the immediate repairs. They also suggested that we put the liner in the spillway, and to make sure that the pipe no longer put the liner in the outlet pipe to prevent further collapse and stabilize the structure, so the water will just be able to flow. So the pipe that you see in all the photos that we've seen part of the inspection reports, where it's the pipe and it's like separate from the wall, and you see that big gap, what this is to do is to put a pipe in and slip line in, and it's kind of like a balloon, and it just blows up and it conforms to the entire area, so the water can just flow and it continues to operate. And then we have to fill the voids within the roadway with flowable fill or some type of material that will help make sure that, again, the structure is stabilized. In addition to that, we would need to do what you would call riprap, a lot of rocks and boulders, and then we would need to strategically place them and push them up against the wall to, again, stabilize the area. Once that's done, we think that we have a good amount of time to then take a look at next steps. But that is what's being proposed to us by our consultants as well. And we do understand that that requires significant regulatory compliance with Mass DEP, the Office of Dam and Safety, National Heritage, our local Conservation Commission, and potentially the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So we have been working with our consultant. That's what some of those transfer monies is for, to make sure that they're filing the proper paperwork so that we can make sure we can move forward expeditiously and make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do. Next item was the 2025 pavement management program. As you've seen, we have a couple of projects that are going on around town. This is part of the pavement management plan that was proposed by the projects and programs manager, Arthur Marcos, at the beginning of the year, when he started back in September, October timeframe. So you're gonna start seeing their contractor that won the bid, EJ Paving, and they're gonna be reclaiming, which is removing all of the asphalt and bringing the roads back down to dirt. So essentially, you're getting a brand new roadway. You're not just getting some asphalt slapped on top of a roadway, which is a big change for us in terms of how we approach our roadway management and should give us a lot more years of use on our roads. So the following roads are going to be addressed, which is Highland Ave, Merritt Ave, Stalker Ave, Hardy Ave, Elm Park Extension, and then they will repave the roads the next week. And then we're looking at the contractor coming out and paving the intersection at School and Salem Street, and that's part of the project with the Salem Street signalization project that we had, and overlaying that, because they did some trench work for the signal. And then also they'll be looking at Murray Ave, Murray Road, Murray Court, and Harvard Road. And those are the roads that were associated with the sewer improvement project through the 150 Center Street, so there's significant trenching over there as well. And some of that funding is not coming from Chapter 90, some of that funding is coming through the developer who developed over on Sewell Street off of Salem Street. So those monies are going back into repairing those roadways. So if there's anybody who has any questions about the pavement management program or where we're at in the process, there is a website that we have created, or excuse me, a page on our website that we created with all this information. And we are trying to advise the public as much as we possibly can so that they can expect delays and understand if there's detours. We are also communicating with the Groveland Elementary School, Bagnell, as well as the bus company, Salter Transportation, and then we are communicating with Waste Management to make sure that there is no impact. And as we discussed, there's going to be details, so the police are fully on board with providing details and making sure people are able to access. For the annual, so I had this as annual reports for departments, so with the town administrator bylaw passing, I really want to take an opportunity to bring departments into the select board at their discretion to some extent. So I know a lot of times, you know, we only hear from departments during the budget season, so I would like to try and do annual reports for the department. They will submit a form to the select board and you can review it, and if you have questions, we can bring them in, but some departments actually want to come before you. They want to talk about what they're doing. They don't just want to see you at an event and pull you aside and say, hey, look at this I'm working on, or, you know, brag about something that's happening, and rightfully so. So this would give them an opportunity to either A, submit a memo, this is what I'm working on, some of the key highlights, and they don't want to come or they don't have time. Obviously, we would allow them to comp their time to come in and talk to the board, maybe come in later the next day. But if they didn't want to come and talk to you, they would still be able to present that, and you could still ask questions and still engage with the department. And this wouldn't take the place of the department meetings that we're having internally as well. It's just another opportunity for them to go before the board. Because some of the feedback that I have heard from them, again, is that they just don't get to communicate with you, so they don't feel like you're looking, and sometimes I might not highlight something that they did, or I'll just briefly touch, but did you say this, and did you mention this? You only said this, I saw it. And they want to be able to talk about that, and I thought this would be a great way to be able to do that. So hopefully that will be something that you would receive. Then for the 2024 annual report, that has been completed. It is up on the website. We do have printed copies, so if anybody would like a printed copy, I can provide you one. If you'd like the digital, it is up on our website under the town clerk's annual report page. So that has been done. We are in compliance. That is a select board requirement, so I'm happy to report we are in compliance. For website and communications, as discussed during the budget process, that we will be moving away from John Guilfoyle Public Relations effective July 1st, and we will be bringing communications in-house moving forward. That does include our website hosting, so we are working with a new company to just merge over all of our data, keep a lot of the same type of formatting in terms of the branding and some of the other photos and information that we have, but just making it a lot more easier to use, not only on behalf of the user, but internally. Posting documents now, you have to upload to media, then, you know, copy to the clipboard, take it and put somewhere else. It just doesn't really make it very functional for us internally to get things up there. Additionally, there's a documents on demand feature, which is really cool because, you know, Mike Dempsey on working with the Community Preservation Commission had worked really hard to bring Laserfiche into the community, which is a great tool that we can utilize to put documents with the OCR recognition, so you can recognize the text of the documents. And he went spent a long time trying to get the historic documents with the library and the clerk, and then even with the Conservation Commission. But it didn't catch on the way that we wanted, and it was really costly in terms of the actual software itself. So this, while still has a cost, is something that's a little bit more feasible for us. So we're hoping to put all of our agendas and minutes on it. So say you wanted to know everything that happened about the Salem Street Dam, you would put Salem Street Dam, and if it was talked about by the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board, the Select Board, it'll pull up the agenda, it'll pull up your minutes, it will pull up everything where it says Salem Street Dam, or just Salem. It gives you everything at your search engine. And then we're also hoping at a suggestion from Mike in the past in terms of what he's been able to accomplish is to do property files. So in other communities, they use a feature like Laserfiche to put all of your property files on there. So if you're looking to buy a house at 183 Main Street, you have wetlands in the background, you don't know if you have, when the pool was permitted, do you have a septic system, what's happening? The same type of thing you can put in the search engine like 183 Main Street, and it will pull up all the documents associated with building permits, Concom, planning. So another feature that we're really hopeful that we can utilize that we don't currently have at our fingertips. And then in regards to press releases, a lot of what we were doing with John Guilfoyle was that he's doing a lot of press releases and pushing out news to Wave, Eagle Tribune, Newburyport Daily News. So we've designed like a template that we're working on so that we can just update the public as necessary. We can put it on our social media pages. We're working with the police, fire, the library, the Council on Aging. They have a really robust programming agenda that they like to put out. So we're going to be just taking that on internally. It just makes sense. It allows us to control the message. It's more streamlined. You don't have as many people touching and getting back who's quoted this or what's happening here. So we can just kind of get that out quickly. But we've really enjoyed working with John Guilfoyle, and we're going to continue to actually work with him on the water and sewer front. And if there's ever a time where we need more general focus, project-oriented things, we'll certainly tap into his resources at that point in time. For the IT planning process, we're going to be adding that to our agendas in-house to talk more about what we're doing for our IT-related needs. There's a lot of subscriptions and things that we work with on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot of things that are just outdated. Working with the town clerk's office, we use a great system for LL data, but it is an access database. It could be it could be improved. It could be better used by not just one department, but multiple departments, and capitalizing on that and just really kind of talking to each other about what is it that you're using and how can we make that and improve that. And that also correlates with, our cybersecurity, making sure that people are taking proper trainings about phishing scams. You would be surprised how many emails we get. I think, Kathy was the latest victim where it was like, oh, I'm the select board member. Can you please transfer me over, X amount of dollars? And they're like, Kathy just asked me for this. And I'm like, that's not Kathy. Do not click on that email. So it's really important that we make sure that the staff is fully aware, because some of these are extremely, I've never seen anything like it. You get like an Adobe document and it's like, oh, open this proposal. And you're like, okay. And it's the email looks legit, the document looks legit, it puts you to the Microsoft Outlook, and all of a sudden you just gave your password to somebody overseas. So it's really important that we do that. And that's also a recommendation as part of our IT assessment that we're working with CBIZ, who actually happens to be our auditor as well. And then performance evaluations, like we were doing for myself, performance evaluations are something we do annually with departments. So I am working on the actual evaluations themselves and making some tweaks here and there, just based upon what I've seen in the past. So I will keep you updated and let you know how things are going. So let you all know that the Pines Recreation Boat Ramp, the ramps are in, and any resident who wants to obtain a permit or renew their permit or receive gate access is welcome to go to the Treasurer Collector's Office, and we also have information on our website if anybody's interested. And then I also wanted to personally thank the Council on Aging in Georgetown. Unfortunately, our van is going through some repairs. We've been struggling to find somebody who can help us with some of the electronical components. We actually are looking to collaborate with the Merrimack Valley Regional Transit Authority, MEVA, to see if they can help us. But Georgetown had an extra van available, and they're allowing our Council on Aging to use it which is making sure that we have no service interruptions to our older adults here in town. So I want to make sure to publicly thank them, both the town administrator in Georgetown as well as the Council on Aging Director. For project and requests and residential concerns, I haven't really heard much from the board or some residents in regards to anything specific. Field use, property use permits, we did issue a property use permit for CFCE Family Connections to use the Pines Pavilion for a child play group from July 11th, July 18th, July 25th, August 1st, August 8th, August 15th, and August 22nd from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. The park will not be, anyone can still utilize the space. They're just congregating and holding their program there, and their program is open to all. So it's not something that will impede upon the use of the facility. For important upcoming dates, we have the Groveland Troop 87 Annual Electronic Recycling Fundraiser that will be on Perry Park. That will be from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The American Legion Post 248 Memorial Day Ceremony will be at May 22nd at 6:30 at the Central Fire Station. I'll touch upon this more later, but we're going to have a Perry Park engagement session, and that's going to be on May 29th at 6:30 here at Town Hall. And then the Groveland Garden Club annual plant sale is May 31st from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Little Red Schoolhouse. For grants, we have the 150 Center Street request for expression of interest. We've mentioned this a couple of times. We had originally released the REI on the 18th. The due date was May 19th. We've had a couple of questions, but we have not received any proposals. The deadline for submission is May 19th, so since we're not really getting submissions, we wanted to extend the deadline and try and do a little bit more outreach. So we've extended it to June 2nd. So the REI has been recirculated and re-advertised, and we'll continue to push to see if we can get any responses. Once we do, those will come back before the board for your review. And then, as mentioned before, the Perry Park restoration update. This is a community preservation project that has been our project lead, Stephanie Bartelt. She's been fantastic. She is extremely passionate and has been moving this project along. It has been an honor to work with her. I'm really excited about this. We are working with a consultant, WDG, and they have provided a sketch or a concept that really takes into consideration a lot of the feedback that we had discussed originally as part of this project, and making it a passive area for people to view nature and to sit and to view art. We're talking about some, dust pathways to swings and art installments and green space and a pavilion. And there's a lot of different elements that the consultant had put together. So at this meeting, we'll be discussing a lot more about what that looks like. We encourage you all to attend, and if anybody has any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer or direct you to Stephanie, who really is the expert on the matter and the driving force. So again, we're super excited about that. The Shanahan parking lot access improvements, the contractor has installed the binder course on the parking lot and is now working to finalize a few of the remaining items, and this includes the sidewalk connections and landscaping. Once those are completed, the top coat of pavement will be installed with the final pavement markings. The Pines Recreation Area, the contractor has completed installation of the binder pavement at the Pines, extending down to the boat ramp, which is pretty neat because now you're seeing people utilize the parking space, and you can kind of see exactly how it's all going to shape out. And the new pathway leading down to the site is nearly finished. My office sits right outside there. Nothing makes me happier than watching people use that pathway like day in and day out. It has been so well received, and so there's a couple of things that we need to do to finalize that. We need to put in a railing, so the railing is coming, and then the second connection path from the dog park over to the existing path is still left to be completed. The issue right now that we're running into, unfortunately, it's a good thing and a bad thing, is that the Pines has become such a popular place. There's so many people down there, so it's very difficult for the contractors to get down there and do the work. And we're not just talking, I mean, I'm sure that the chair can attest to this from the dog park view, that there's somebody down there all the time. So even during the day, in the afternoon, even before school gets out, there's people down there. So we are trying to coordinate that, which is causing a slight delay. And also, the railing for the pathway leading down is custom, so it's taking a little while to get that back. But once those are done, we're hoping that July, those two projects will be off the books and will be completed, and we're really excited about it. The dams and seawall grant update, like we had mentioned, we separate from everything else with the emergency, whatnot. This is the $98,000 that we received in order to explore the design and permitting of either removal or repair of the dam. GDA provided us a scope of services. We provided that then to the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, so they're working to finalize the contract. I know there was a little bit of back and forth because they didn't know if we were going to pass the MBTA 3A zoning, and that would have pulled our funding. But given the fact that we have, I think we should be safe and we should be able to move forward. So we're looking to button that up, get that signed, and we'll be good to go. And along those lines, the DER Dam Removal Preliminary Design Services Program, this is monies that was going to go towards supplementing that work to answer a lot of the questions that Kathy just mentioned. What's going to happen to the watershed? What will be the impact? What is the ecological benefit versus any of the downsides of proposing to remove it? Does it make sense to repair it? So this is something that we've worked with in collaboration with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, as well as the Merrimack River Water Council and Matthew Craney, who's been a great asset and a great resource and really great to work with. So hopefully we can get some more answers about what we're looking to do. So that continues to move forward. That is implemented by DER. They spend the funds. They actually chose GZA. Ironically, we're working with them, so it really kind of worked in our benefit. The Municipal Pavement Program Grant, that's the Route 97 paving project. You've probably seen that the contractor completed the paving on Wednesday of April 30th, and the project included milling and paving approximately 0.8 miles of roadway. They have currently installed temporary traffic lines and will be painting permanent striping next week. So we're looking at Tuesday, May 13th, and Wednesday, well, that's this week, sorry. I was writing this on Friday. The contractor will be painting the pavement markings on, and that will be from the School Street to Route 97, Gardner Street to Parker Road. So there will be some impacts to traffic, but we do have a detail, and we will make sure that the detours are listed, and we did put something out, again, on social media as well as the website. And then for 46 Washington Street, we actually received, and you'll see this in your correspondence, a $25,000 earmark from Representative Ramos to support the market feasibility study that we had discussed originally for 46 Washington Street at the outset when we were going back and forth about the CPC project. So this study will help us determine the viability of repairing and reusing the building. It's not the full amount that we need in order to move forward, so since we are still eligible, we're going to be using that as a match for our grant application to the Community One Stop for the remaining funding, because it's about $45,000 to $65,000 that we'll need. And if the representative was able to secure the 25, we're confident that with that match, we'll be able to secure the rest of the funding through the mass development grant that we received, similar to what we received from them for 150 Center Street. So we'll continue to work towards that, and we want to publicly thank Representative Ramos for her advocacy and her support on this matter. And we also received notification from Senator Tarr's office that he has advocated for additional funding for the Salem Street Dam. So originally there was an earmark proposed for about $45,000, and that has been increased to $145,000 to try and help us mitigate and maintain and figure out, again, a long-term plan that will help the town move forward in whatever direction that it chooses, while also taking care of an emergency situation that we find ourselves in. So we thank Senator Tarr again for his advocacy and everything that he's done for the community. From procurement, as we mentioned, contract 2025-35, that was the contract with John Guilfoyle for the Water and Sewer Department for communication and website hosting. 2025-33 is the monitor replacement for the police department at the dispatch center, as we discussed earlier. Then we have 2025-32, which is the general code updates. Those are the codes that you see on our website. That's all codified, so it has the different updates for the general bylaw, subdivision, the conservation local bylaw, and then we also get like a binder that has the updated, like the paper copy. So we leave one in the vault, one with the clerk, and then a couple of the offices that use it get a copy as well. So that contract has been signed, and those will take care of the 2024 updates. Unfortunately, not the updates that we just did, but it would have cost more if we were to wait because there's so many amendments that will need to be made this year. And then also, we signed the 2025-31 Pride Star Trinity contract for ambulance services, and we've been using them for a while now. I know there was some concern originally with the response times, I want to say maybe about 3 years ago, or maybe 2 years ago, but they've been doing great, and we really valued our working relationship with them, and so we're hoping that we can continue to move forward until and if we address other alternative means, but that's been signed, so we are serviced in that particular area. And then for technical review conferences, there were none. And then for the meetings, events, and seminars, I have them listed. So if there's any questions about a specific meeting, I'm happy to answer them. And as always, if at the discretion of the chair, if there's any item that we want to go back and forth and have more conversation on, I'm happy to put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Anybody have any questions for Rebecca?
Yeah, I know.
Rebecca,
Sorry.
I had just two things under selectmen, so I'll wait till then.
Until then? Anybody? All right, so we'll start with selectmen time. And Becky, I think you have,
I do, yes. So I'm starting office hours, so I'll be available monthly before the first select board meeting of each month. So I had it today from 5 to 6. My next one will be June 9th, and I will be in the back conference room, so come talk to me.
So we'll all come see you.
Yeah. Share your concerns, questions, comments, compliments, whatever you want to give.
That's
I'm
wonderful.
there to listen, so. That's all I had, yeah, thank you.
Ed,
I don't have anything.
Steve?
No, once again, I just want to thank everyone that came out last week for the town election and, really appreciate all the support, and also want to congratulate all the candidates that ran for office, whether they won their position or not.
Kathy?
Yes, just quick future agenda item, if we could get on there, when are we doing street sweeping and the crosswalk painting? Because I don't feel like it's been done on South Groveland in like years. Second thing is just, I did have the opportunity to attend a good piece of the 25th annual Jazz Cafe, and it was a 25th, remember back when, and it was an amazing thing, and I highly recommend checking it out on their YouTube channel. They had graduates all the way back from 25 years ago who started with the first jazz cafes, and some of them sent videos in talking about what they're doing, if they're married, where they're living. It was just an amazing night of performance. I didn't stay the whole time, but it was amazing. And then lastly, as everyone knows, we passed a balanced budget, but our neighboring communities are not having it so good. Tonight, Georgetown has a huge override on there. I believe it would cost a household that costs $700,000, like $165 a month additional in taxes. It's significant. It's a significant override, and significant services are listed. And I think that it prompted me to go on to the DLS website and start gathering comparison data with ourselves and neighboring communities, saying, are we next? How are we doing? Are we going to be okay? And I feel like that's something that, if everybody on the board agrees, I'd be glad to bring some of that to the board. It's really easy on the DLS website to pull out, 13 comparison communities and see how much they spend in their different and general areas, what their taxes are. It's just, I feel like sometimes we are so caught up in our own little focus, and, our taxes did go up with the new school building, but not like what's happening around us, not anywhere like that. So I really am grateful and thankful to all of our town departments, to all of our town employees, our financial employees, our assessors, because I know it takes a lot of collaboration, a lot of discussion. It's not easy to keep these budgets in line. It's not easy to be told no on something you want in your budget. But to do it the way our town did it and come together for a budget that's balanced, it's so important right now. It's so critical because the state is not going to bail us out. And we really want to not be in the position that unfortunately I think Georgetown is in right now. You know, I feel badly for the town, and I hope that there is resolution, but that's a huge override, big consideration. So, going forward, if that's something the board wants to see more of, I think we should look at it. We should be well-versed in it.
I like the information. I know I do sort through a lot of information. I expand out to a lot of different towns just because the information means a lot, and it really can help develop a better pathway forward for ourselves in terms of what we do and how we do it. So I know when a lot of people think about comparing ourselves to other towns, they see that as a negative thing, and they say so. And I really see it as a positive thing because it shows what we can do better, how we can improve, and how we can make things run more efficiently, which is something that I think we've been doing very successful, and the state of our finances really display that. I also would like to echo what Steve said and congratulate everybody that ran a winning campaign, and thank everybody that actually took the time to participate in the elections. And I hope that more people do in the future, because it is very important to keep things running smooth and successful. With that, we're going to move on to correspondence. There's a private event in VC Park on May 17th. There's a letter from the Conservation Commission thanking Mr. O'Neill for their participation, his company, his participation for Arbor Day, which I thought was very interesting. The email that we got from, that Rebecca alluded to, from our state representative, Adriana Ramos, which was able to secure the $25,000, but it also lists the held harmless amount that we got from the state added to our Chapter 70 fund, which was $14,101,990, which is what our Chapter 70 fund typically is, and it's going to grow by the 65,470. Not a lot, but I don't know that we increased a lot of students.
Question.
Yes.
On the VZ Park wedding venue contract, when did we move the town hall to 42 Center Street? I thought we were still here.
Is that on the application?
It's on the letter. Groveland Town Hall, 42 Center Street. I thought we were still here.
We're still here.
We moving?
Maybe. But I thought it was going to be on 150 Center Street, but that's just speculation for the future. Keep people talking.
Rebecca? Right here,
It's in the header of the correspondence.
on the back side of correspondence.
Yes, that was from the event coordinator. So there was an error with the address, letting us know that there was going to be an event taking place.
Mark it with the red ink.
Ed has volunteered to read over the warrant to catch all the minor mistakes.
Oh, you don't want to start with it. But I can do that.
And she also listed the unrestricted aid we got, which was $896,304. And I don't know how much we had received previously or what type of increase that was. Do you?
For which one, I'm sorry?
The unrestricted aid,
The 2.2% increase over last
2.2. So a small increase.
Based
And
on the information available, here's what I can tell you about the unrestricted general government aid.
thank you, Guru. I appreciate that. And we also received a letter from West Newburyport, something that we received before in regards to how the school committee is selected for Whittier. Read over it, and I'm sure we'll make this a discussion point at one point moving forward, but I don't think we have a immediate need to discuss it. But if somebody else feels differently, then I suggest they bring it up and we'll put it on the meeting. And with the correspondence out of the way, I'll take a motion to adjourn until Tuesday, May 27th at 6:30.
Make a motion to adjourn at 8:37 PM.
Motion,
Second that?
second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous.